The weight of expectations. The weight of expectations, a son's journey. Prologue. Michael Harrington stood at the window of his corner office, 40 stories above the bustling streets of Chicago. The skyline, a testament to human ambition and will, stretched before him like a steel and glass garden. At 42, he had built Harrington Innovations from nothing into a thriving tech corporation valued at over $3 billion. The Wall Street Journal had recently profiled him as the self-made titan of Midwest tech. Self-made. The irony of that phrase wasn't lost on him. His phone buzzed again. Fifth call from his mother in the last hour. He knew what she wanted, what they all wanted. His assistant had already informed him that his brother James had shown up in the lobby, insisting on just 5 minutes of your time. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the familiar weight settling onto his shoulders. The weight he had carried since he was 7 years old, when his father first put his hand on his shoulder and said, "You're the smart one, Mikey. The one who's going to take care of us all someday." On his desk sat an envelope. Inside was an invitation to the Plaza Hotel in New York, where in 2 weeks, he would ask Elise Bennett to marry him. Elise, brilliant, kind, fiercely independent Elise, who loved him not for what he could provide but for who he truly was. She had been the first person in his life to ask, "But what do you want, Michael?" He hadn't known how to answer at first. As his phone buzzed a 6th time, Michael made a decision. He would answer. But this would be the last time he would carry the weight of expectations that had defined his entire existence. He was ready to set it down. Part 1. The Foundation Years. Chapter 1. A Child's Promise. Michael was 7 when he first understood that he was different. Not because of any inherent quality, but because of the expectations placed upon him. His father, Robert Harrington, had lost his job at the steel mill when it closed in 1989, and the family's finances had plummeted. His mother, Diane, worked double shifts at the local diner, returning home with swollen feet and a tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Look at your homework, Mikey," his father had said one evening, examining Michael's perfect math test. "You've got the brains in this family. Not like James, good kid, but not the sharpest tool. And little Sarah, well, she's pretty as a picture, but she'll need looking after." Michael had felt a strange mix of pride and unease at those words. James, 3 years older, had scowled from the doorway. "You're going to make something of yourself," his father continued. "You're going to pull us all up. That's why we're putting everything we have into your schooling." Michael had nodded solemnly. "I promise, Dad. I'll take care of everyone." It was a promise made by a child who didn't understand the weight of the words. But it was a promise that would shape the next 35 years of his life. Chapter 2. The Gifted Child. By 12, Michael was attending a prestigious private school on scholarship. His parents scraped together money for his uniforms, for the extracurricular activities that would look good on a college application. Meanwhile, James drifted through public school, his academic struggles largely ignored. Sarah, 5 years younger than Michael, was already being told that, "Your brother will make sure you can go to college someday." The pressure was immense, but Michael thrived under it. He found refuge in books, in numbers, in the elegant logic of computer code. He won math competitions and science fairs. Each trophy, each certificate was met with the same response: "That's our ticket right there. Our Mikey is going places." At home, things were different. James grew increasingly resentful, picking fights, sabotaging Michael's projects. When Michael brought home news of being selected for a summer program at MIT, James had, accidentally, spilled soda all over his acceptance letter. It was an accident, their mother had insisted, even as James smirked behind her back. Sarah, meanwhile, attached herself to Michael like a shadow. "Teach me," she'd beg, sitting beside him as he did his advanced calculus. He tried, patiently walking her through basic concepts, but her interest would quickly wane. "It's okay," she'd sigh. "I don't need to be smart like you. You'll take care of me." Even at 12, Michael understood the troubling implication: his siblings were being raised with the expectation of dependence. Chapter 3. The Sacrifice Begins. At 17, Michael's world changed again. His father, who had been working sporadic construction jobs, fell from scaffolding and broke his back. The minimal workers' compensation wasn't enough to support the family. His mother's hours at the diner couldn't cover the mounting medical bills. Michael had just received a full scholarship to MIT. His dream school, his ticket out of the cycle of struggle. "We need you to defer," his mother had said, tears in her eyes. "Just for a year. Work at the tech store, help us get back on our feet." 1 year turned into 2. Michael worked 60-hour weeks at Comp City, sending most of his paycheck home. He took community college classes at night, determined not to lose momentum. James, now 20, had dropped out of community college after a semester and was finding himself, which seemed to involve a lot of video games and very little employment. Sarah was 13, increasingly obsessed with brand name clothes and social status. When Michael finally made it to MIT at 19, he did so with the understanding that he would continue sending money home. He took out loans for his living expenses, worked 2 part-time jobs, and still maintained a 3.9 GPA. Every phone call from home ended with, "We're counting on you, Mikey." And every time, he replied, "I know. I promised." Part 2. The Building Years. Chapter 4. The Entrepreneur Emerges. By 23, Michael had earned his bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science through an accelerated program. He had also developed the algorithm that would become the foundation of Harrington Innovations, a revolutionary approach to data processing that caught the attention of several venture capitalists. The night he received his first seed funding offer, $250,000 to develop his idea into a viable product, he called home, bursting with excitement. "That's wonderful, honey," his mother had said, before immediately adding, "Your father needs another surgery. The insurance won't cover it. We're looking at about $40,000. Michael sent $60,000. He lived in a studio apartment with a leaking ceiling and ate ramen noodles for months while he worked 18-hour days to build his company. James, now 26, had moved back home after a failed attempt at starting a band in Nashville. Sarah was in high school, her grades mediocre, her interest in academics non-existent. "Why bother?" she'd replied when Michael urged her to apply herself. "You're the genius in the family. I'm just waiting for you to get rich so I can be your trophy sister." She'd said it jokingly, but the joke had an edge that cut Michael deeply. Chapter 5. Success and Strain. By 30, Michael had transformed Harrington Innovations from a promising startup into a major player in the tech industry. The company employed over 200 people and had offices in Chicago and Boston. Michael's personal net worth had crossed into 8 figures. With success came escalating expectations. His father's medical needs continued, but now there were also demands for loans that would never be repaid. James, approaching 30, had cycled through a dozen dead-end jobs and was now talking about opening a restaurant. "Just need some startup capital, Mikey. It's a sure thing." Sarah had dropped out of the state university after 3 semesters, claiming college wasn't for her, and was now asking for money to find her passion, which seemed to involve expensive yoga retreats and travel to exotic locations. Michael bought his parents a house in an upscale suburb. He set up a trust to handle his father's medical expenses. He gave James seed money for the restaurant, which closed within 6 months. He paid for Sarah's apartment in the city and her series of abandoned pursuits: photography, jewelry making, interior design. "You're enabling them," said Marcus Chen, Michael's closest friend and the CFO of Harrington Innovations. "They're never going to stand on their own feet if you keep carrying them." "What choice do I have?" Michael had replied. "Their family. I promised." But the strain was showing. He developed insomnia, grinding his teeth at night until his dentist prescribed a mouth guard. His blood pressure crept up. At board meetings, investors expressed concern about his family distractions. Still, Michael persisted. His company continued to grow. He continued to give, and the weight on his shoulders grew heavier. Chapter 6. The Meeting of Minds. Michael met Elise Bennett at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was presenting her research on artificial intelligence ethics, brilliant, articulate, and refreshingly direct. Unlike the parade of people who approached Michael with ideas for partnerships that were thinly veiled attempts to access his resources, Elise challenged his company's data privacy policies during the Q&A session of his keynote. Their debate continued over coffee, then dinner, then late into the night at the hotel bar. For the first time in years, Michael found himself fully engaged in a conversation that had nothing to do with his family's needs or his company's growth trajectories. Elise saw him, not as a provider, not as a solution to problems, but as a mind worth engaging with. Their relationship developed slowly. Elise had her own career, her own ambitions. She didn't need or want Michael's connections or resources. When he offered to invest in her research institute, she declined, explaining that she valued her independence and the integrity of her work too much to blur those lines. After a year of long-distance dating, weekly video calls, and meeting halfway in cities across the country, Elise accepted a position at Northwestern University, moving to Chicago. As they began to build a life together, Michael found himself changing, relaxing, sleeping better, laughing more easily. For the first time, he was with someone who asked what he wanted, who noticed when the weight became too much and encouraged him to set boundaries. Your family sees you as an ATM, not a person, she observed after a particularly tense Sunday dinner at his parents' house, where the conversation had revolved entirely around James's new business idea and Sarah's desire to open a boutique yoga studio. They don't mean to, Michael had defended, though the words sounded hollow even to him. Intent doesn't change impact, Elise replied gently. They're drowning you, Michael. And the worst part is, they've convinced you it's your duty to let them. Part 3. The Breaking Point. Chapter 7. The Announcement. After 3 years together, Michael was ready to propose. He planned an elaborate weekend in New York, the city where Elise had grown up, culminating in a private dinner at the Plaza Hotel, where he would ask her to marry him. The ring, a vintage emerald surrounded by small diamonds, reflected Elise's preference for understated elegance over flashy displays. Michael made the mistake of sharing his plans with his family during their monthly dinner. His mother's reaction was immediate and jarring. The Plaza. For a proposal? Don't you think that's excessive, Michael? That money could help your brother's new contracting business get off the ground. James, now 45 and on his 7th career, nodded vigorously. Yeah, Mikey, I just need about 30 grand for equipment. This time it's going to work out, I swear. Sarah, 37 and recently returned from a life-changing retreat in Bali that Michael had funded, chimed in, and have you really thought about Elise as a long-term partner? She's so independent. Don't you want someone more family-oriented? Someone who understands your responsibilities? Their father remained silent, as he often did now, but his expression spoke volumes. Disappointment, as if Michael's desire for personal happiness was a betrayal of his duty. This isn't up for discussion, Michael said firmly. I'm marrying Elise. I love her, and she loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Well, I think we should at least meet her parents before things get too serious, his mother said. What do they do? Are they comfortable? Because marriage is about joining families, and frankly, we've come to depend on you, Michael. We need to know if her people understand that. Michael felt something snap inside him, a tether that had held him bound to obligations and expectations for decades. My relationship with Elise is not a financial arrangement, he said quietly. And starting now, neither is my relationship with all of you. Chapter 8. The Escalation. The weeks leading up to the New York trip turned into a psychological siege. His mother called daily, each conversation more manipulative than the last. I've been looking at wedding venues, she announced a week before the proposal trip. The country club would give us a discount if we book within the month. Mom, we haven't even gotten engaged yet, Michael replied. And when we do, Elise and I will plan our own wedding. But I've always dreamed of planning my son's wedding. Are you going to take that away from me too? First, you move out of the family home, then you barely visit, and now this. The calls from James and Sarah came too, each with their own financial emergencies that somehow needed immediate attention, just as Michael was preparing for the most important personal moment of his life. The final straw came 3 days before the New York trip. Michael arrived at his office to find his mother waiting, having bypassed security by claiming a family emergency. She carried a binder full of wedding plans and cost estimates. I've worked it all out, she announced, spreading papers across his desk without invitation. We can have a beautiful ceremony for around 100,000. Your father and I have already spoken to our pastor. Michael stared at her in disbelief. Mom, stop. This isn't happening. Elise and I will plan our own wedding, if she even says yes. Of course she'll say yes. What woman wouldn't want to marry a man with your resources? But that's exactly why we need to be careful about how money is spent. The family needs to be considered. James's business. No, Michael interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. No more. What do you mean, no more? I mean I'm done. I've spent my entire life trying to take care of everyone. I've given you a house, paid for Dad's medical care, funded James's failed businesses, and bankrolled Sarah's, finding herself, for nearly 2 decades. I've done everything you've asked and more. But this, my relationship with Elise, is mine. Not yours, not the family's. Mine. His mother's face hardened. After everything we've sacrificed for you. What exactly did you sacrifice, Mom? You pushed me to succeed so I could support the family. You neglected James and Sarah's education because you assumed I'd take care of them. You've treated me like an investment that's finally paying dividends. How dare you? We gave you everything. No. You gave me a burden and called it purpose. You made a child promise to carry adults, and then you made sure I never put that weight down. His mother stood, gathering her papers with shaking hands. If that's how you feel, perhaps you should reconsider your place in this family. It was meant as a threat, but to Michael, it sounded like permission to finally be free. I think I will, he replied quietly. Chapter 9. The Liberation. The Plaza Hotel glittered with old-world elegance as Michael led Elise through its storied halls. Despite the family drama of the past weeks, despite his mother's tearful accusations and his siblings' angry messages, Michael felt strangely light. He had turned off his phone for the weekend, something he had never done before, and the silence was exhilarating. Elise, radiant in a deep green dress that matched the emerald ring waiting in Michael's pocket, sensed the change in him. You seem different tonight, she observed as they were seated at their private table overlooking Central Park. More present. I am, Michael replied. For the first time, I'm fully here, not half listening for the next crisis call. When he dropped to one knee after dessert, the question came easily, without the weight of family expectations pressing down on him. And when Elise said yes, tears shining in her eyes, Michael felt a joy unmarred by guilt or obligation. Later that night, lying beside Elise as she slept, her hand with the emerald ring resting on his chest, Michael checked his phone once. 27 missed calls. 43 text messages. 3 voicemails, each more desperate than the last. He turned the phone off again and made his decision. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. The confrontation, when it came, was painful but necessary. Michael arranged a family meeting at his parents' house, the house he had purchased for them 10 years earlier. Elise waited at their apartment. This was something he needed to do alone. I've made some decisions, he began, facing the 4 people who had defined his existence for so long. I'm getting married to Elise. We're planning our own wedding, without input from any of you. His mother opened her mouth to protest, but Michael raised his hand. I'm not finished. I've set up trusts for each of you. Dad, your medical expenses will continue to be covered for life. Mom, you'll receive a monthly stipend that will allow you to live comfortably. James, Sarah, you'll each receive a one-time payment. It's substantial, enough to start over if you choose to. But after that, you're on your own. The explosion was immediate. Accusations of betrayal, of abandonment, of selfishness flew across the room. His father sat silent, his eyes reflecting not anger but something more disturbing, fear. For the first time, Michael realized that his father had never believed in him as a person, only as a solution. You promised. His mother finally shrieked, when the initial storm had abated. You promised you'd take care of us. I was 7 years old, Michael replied quietly. What kind of parents ask a child to make that promise? What kind of parents make sure their other children never learn to stand on their own? I've kept that promise for 35 years. I'm releasing myself from it now. As he stood to leave, Sarah, tears streaming down her face, asked the question that revealed everything, but who's going to take care of us now? Michael looked at his sister, nearly 40 years old and still thinking like a dependent child, and felt a mix of pity and resolve. That was always supposed to be you, Sarah. All of you, taking care of yourselves. Chapter 11. The Silent Months. The months following what his family called the abandonment were a study in emotional warfare. His mother orchestrated a campaign of guilt, enlisting extended family members to reach out with stories of hardship. James alternated between rage and pathetic pleas. Sarah claimed to be developing anxiety disorders from the stress of financial insecurity, despite the substantial sum in her trust. Michael held firm. The trusts were irrevocable, the boundaries clear. He changed his personal phone number, instructed his assistant to screen calls, and focused on building his life with Elise. Their wedding was intimate. 60 guests on a beach in Maui, with Marcus as his best man and Elise's sister as her maid of honor. No family members from Michael's side attended, though all were invited. His mother had declared it too painful to watch him flaunt his selfishness. The pain was real, but so was the relief. Without the constant drain of family crises, Michael found new energy for his company, for his relationship, for himself. He and Elise bought a home, began talking about children, traveled without Michael checking his phone every hour for emergencies. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift within the Harrington family. Part 4. The Reconstruction. Chapter 12. The First Steps. A year into the estrangement, Michael received an email from Sarah. Unlike her previous communications, there were no accusations, no demands. Instead, she shared that she had taken a job as a receptionist at a yoga studio and was taking classes to become an instructor. "It's hard," she wrote. "Harder than I expected to actually work for things. But also satisfying. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, I just wanted you to know." Michael responded with encouragement but maintained his boundaries. When Sarah asked if he would help pay for her certification program, he gently reminded her that she had the means to do so herself. To his surprise, she didn't lash out. "You're right," she replied. "I'm still learning." Chapter 13. The Unlikely Growth. 2 years passed. Michael and Elise welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Elena. The news reached his family through mutual acquaintances, and Michael received a card from his mother, the first communication that wasn't laced with recrimination. Just a simple congratulations and a small hand-knitted blanket. James, meanwhile, had used his trust money to enroll in a technical college, studying HVAC installation and repair. It was his first sustained effort at education since high school. When he graduated with his certification, he sent Michael a photo of himself in cap and gown, with the caption, "Never too late to grow up, I guess." His father's health declined, and Michael arranged for the best care, though he maintained his emotional distance. During a rare visit to the hospital, his father had gripped his hand and said simply, "I was wrong, son. About so many things." They were small steps, fragile beginnings of something that might never fully heal but had at least stopped actively bleeding. Chapter 14. The Unexpected Invitation. 3 years into the estrangement, Michael received a formal invitation. Sarah was opening her own yoga studio, a small operation funded entirely by her own savings and a business loan she had qualified for on her own merit. The grand opening was in 2 weeks, and she wanted Michael and his family to attend. Michael hesitated, but Elise encouraged him. "People can change," she said. "Maybe not completely, but they can learn." The studio was modest but tasteful. Sarah greeted them with nervous dignity, proudly showing off the space she had designed and financed herself. There was no hint of the entitled young woman who had once expected her brother to fund her every whim. "I understand now," she told Michael quietly, as they watched Elena toddle around the bamboo-floored studio. "What you were trying to tell us all those years. About standing on our own feet. I hated you for it, but thank you." It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was acknowledgement, and for now, that was enough. Chapter 15. The Slow Return. Over the next few years, the relationship between Michael and his family evolved into something new, not the dependent bond of the past, but not complete estrangement either. His mother never fully accepted Elise, but she learned to be civil, to respect boundaries, to express love without expectation. James found unexpected fulfillment in his HVAC career, eventually starting a small but successful business that operated without a cent of Michael's money. He married, had children of his own, and developed a tentative friendship with his brother based on mutual respect rather than dependence. Sarah's yoga studio thrived, and she discovered a talent for teaching and mentorship. She became especially close to Elena, taking genuine interest in her niece's development without the underlying resentment that had colored so much of her own childhood. Michael's father passed away 5 years after the confrontation. At the funeral, Michael stood with his family, the distance between them physical but no longer entirely emotional. His mother, gray and diminished by grief, held his hand briefly. "He was proud of you," she said. "Not just for what you achieved, but for having the courage we never did." Epilogue. The Full Circle. 10 years after the day Michael decided to break the cycle of dependence, he stood again at the window of his office, looking out at the Chicago skyline. At 52, he had stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Harrington Innovations, focused instead on a foundation he and Elise established to support first-generation college students. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah, confirming Sunday dinner at her house. These monthly gatherings had become a tentative tradition over the past few years. Not always comfortable, not without the occasional tension, but genuine in a way their previous family interactions had never been. Michael thought about the journey, from the 7-year-old boy who had made an impossible promise to the man who had finally learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all, but a form of mutual destruction. He thought about his daughter, now 8, growing up without the weight of family expectation crushing her potential. The door opened, and Elise entered, her smile still capable of lightening his heart after all these years. "Ready to go home?" she asked. Michael looked once more at the skyline, the empire he had built, the legacy he had created. Important, yes. But no longer the sum total of his worth. "Yes," he said, taking her hand. "I'm ready." The weight was still there, Family always carried weight. But now it was distributed properly, shared among adults capable of carrying their own burdens. And Michael walked with a straight back and clear eyes toward the future he had chosen for himself. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. And don't forget those post notifications for the next Hood Tales installment.